Yo, what is up, guys? Your boy IzuKage here with part 4 of What If Deku Was Iron Man. Again, I'm not recording where I usually do, so if it's echoey or anything different, just excuse it. Just give it a couple videos, and yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let's begin. So we left off in class where Aizawa announced the sports festival. They get their 2 weeks break from school to train, and Izuku's training really isn't physical, it's more him using his intellect to develop new suits. But Izuku thinking that the conventional physical, making the armor, it's a bit not outdated because his technology is far beyond what humans are right now. He thinks it's more convenient to not have a physical piece of armor, but he starts thinking, what if it can just be my skin? And that's what he spends his time working on. Him along with May figure out how to combine nanobots and biotechnology. And figuring this out, Izuku never has to develop any armor, but he just thinks about the suit he wants to create and his skin turns into the suit. But this really amazing ability comes with a cost. It has to He has to perform a surgery on himself, and a very painful surgery. He has to replace all his regular skin cells with new biotech ones. And you can imagine the length of time this would take because you have billions, maybe even trillions of skin cells. So yeah, and it's really painful. And Izuku realistically is the only person who can perform this because a normal human brain would explode with the amount of information you're receiving from the billions of biotech cells that you replaced it with, because they're all sending detailed information to the brain. So instead of you feeling that the ground is cold, Izuku would feel that the ground is 10 degrees Celsius, and that's only his feet. Just imagine every part of your body sending you detailed descriptions of your environment, including humidity, temperature, stuff like that, just all the time. So he increases his processing speed and storage capacity, which would allow him to sort and store all the data as quick as you can blink. So Mei really wants to talk Izuku out of it, but her natural feeling is to see how it goes because she's an inventor and she always wants to see her inventions work without really putting a lot of thought into it. But she wants to be a good girlfriend, and there is a chance that Izuku might die because this is a very invasive process. So she tries talking Izuku out of it, saying it's really not worth it. And his normal armor is fine, but Izuku reassures her and gives her a kiss, and she, after that, she thinks, okay, it's not that bad. And she helps him into the tank with all the nanobots to perform the surgery. So this process takes a week, and Mei has to take Izuku out of the tank every 12 hours, to give his body a rest. Because all of this could, if he overworks his body, it could again lead to his death. So after the week, Izuku wakes up and he sees Mei looking over his vitals, making sure he's okay. And in a weak voice, he says, "Mei," and she turns around, all excited, saying, "It worked, it worked, it worked," and hugged Izuku really tight. And normally this would hurt, even break his ribs, but where Mei is hugging him, armor appeared around his chest, protecting him from the pressure, which shocked both Izuku and Mei. They're like, it wasn't supposed to happen this early. And Izuku tries turning his hand into blasters, but it doesn't work, which confuses him even more. So basically, the armor appeared around his chest just to protect him, kind of like Gaara's Sand, automatic defense, but he has to train to control it by will. So to add to this little scenario, let's switch to Inko. She she was actually home, but Izuku didn't know. Like, this is like before the surgery. Izuku didn't know, and she was just peeking around the corners, watching him take Mei to his room. She's like, "Oh, you think you're slick?" She just whispers this to herself. So after they enter the room, an hour later, Inko busts through the door. "Ha, gotcha!" But she didn't see anyone because they were in Izuku's lab. And she was really confused, and while Izuku was having the surgery, Inko was trying to figure out where they went because there is no exits in the room, well, apart from the window, but it's a multiple story house, so out the window, that's death, at least in her eyes. And that day, and the day Izuku finishes his surgery, Inko was just ready to give up because she has been searching this entire week, but she puts up a final stand. She calls in all the maids, which is around 20, to search the place for any secret entrance. They search for a whole hour, and Inko lets them go on break, and she's just in the room like, where could they have gone? She goes to the shelf and, checks all the different books, and one of them just felt different. She pulls on it and it opens up the secret entrance. She peeks in, and it's a really huge room. It's like as huge as an aircraft hangar. She's like, how do you even hide this? And it's just imagine the box from Doctor Who. Is it Doctor Who? Yeah, sure. Like the telephone box where it's like just a telephone box on the outside, but it's really huge on the inside. So yeah. So she enters and looks around the corner. She sees Mei on top of Izuku, like they're on a bed, and Mei just at this time he just came out of the tank and the whole armor thing happened, and she's just on top of him to check out the biotech, seeing it change from skin to armor through a microscope. But Inko was thinking the worst. She was like, oh hell no, you guys are way too young. She runs up and uses her telekinesis and yeets Mei off Izuku, sending her flying into some boxes, breaking her fall, or not fall, but yeah. And she runs up to Izuku and starts slapping the hell out of him. And by the end of it, Inko realized her hand hurt, not even Izuku. But it wasn't because, when you slap something, it does hurt you a little. It was because, his cheek turned into armor protecting him. So Izuku uses the little strength he has to say, sorry. And he explains that he unlocked a second quirk. And Inko was like, he says this because it's just easier than saying, oh, I just performed a life-threatening surgery. So Inko's angry expression became, more warm and endearing, and she hugs Izuku because he has another quirk. This is amazing. And I'm gonna say Inko's grandfather actually had a metal manipulation quirk, so she doesn't really think too much on it. She just thinks, oh, it skipped her and went to Izuku. And while they were hugging, you just hear a voice in the back, hey, you're forgetting something. And Inko turns around and says, oh yeah. And she whips back to Deku and says, you're too young for that. You're in school. You can't have babies. And Izuki's like, what are you talking about? She was helping me with my quirk. And Inko sides-eyed Deku. He's like, sure. And then turns to Mei and says, you out of my house. She tries to argue, but nope, out of my house. And Mei just sighs and says, oh, okay, bye Izuku. And he waves goodbye. And while Izuku is still getting chewed out, and Inko is like, first, the secret lab. No, that I was okay with. My child has secrets, okay. 2, having a girl over. Izuku, you're pushing it, but you're a teenager, I understand. But 3, a secret business, Izuku? And he's like, what? How do you know about that? And she points to the huge Stark Tech logo on his wall. He's like, oh, yeah. And then she's like, yeah, good name, Stark Tech. You're really the only one with that last name, and I wouldn't create a business. And Izuku's like, oh, damn, I should have came up with a more elaborate name. And Inko just, storms out of breath, and Izuku's just on his bed saying, oh, why does this have to turn out this way? So Izuku takes 2 days to recover from the surgery and another 4 days to get the hang of his biotech. So he can now just think about what he wants to turn his body parts into. And, during these days, he's been FaceTiming Mei, telling her, sorry about his mom. But while he's doing this, he has to duck and hide from, Inko while he's on the phone. So the last day of the 2-week break, since his mom already knows, Izuku decides to make, Stark Tech a public company. And for those who don't understand anything about business, you don't understand anything about how to make a company, publicly traded. In the most simplest ways, public equals people buy parts of your company equals more money for the company. So yeah, it's really the simplest way I can put it. So Izuku has to go to an event to announce this, and by doing this, he's revealing the face behind Stark Tech, which a lot of people are, excited to figure out, because this basically business that came out of nowhere, who owns it? So a lot of people showed up, and even more people are watching live. So he's going on stage, and everyone he walks onto the stage in his suit, and everyone thinks, oh, it's just the announcer who's gonna call in the actual owner of Stark Tech. No, but he goes up and says, oh, hi everyone, I'm Izuku Stark, and I officially make Stark Tech a public company, putting it on the stock market. And the crowd just went silent. Then everyone was like, what? This kid? And Izuku, it's not really a kid. Izuku is 17, but still, he's still really young to own $1 billion company. And they also catch his last name, the son of the man who brought Stark Medicines to its current glory. It was expected, but still amazing. And, by the way, no one knows there's barely any information on the Stark family. That's why they're so, secretive sometimes. And you know how you would go on Google Maps and certain places are censored out for privacy reasons, I can't really give any specific examples, but yeah. So, and no one can really follow them because they drive through freaking rainfalls to get to their house. So yeah, no one can really follow. So now we're back onto the main storyline. Izuku goes to the sports festival arena, and as he steps out of the car, cameras start flashing in his face from paparazzi, but his and Mei's bodyguard, I already explained that Izuku's bodyguard's quirk is super strength. Mei's bodyguard's quirk is cloning, but his clones, the power of the main, body doesn't divide when you're making a quirk. It stays the same, and the person has to be either as strong or stronger than that bodyguard, and he works out, so he's pretty beefy. So you have to be pretty beefy to take down his clone, to dispel it. So the average guy can't dispel a clone. So Izuku takes Mei's hand and they enter the arena already in their PE uniform. And since Izuku doesn't use the suits anymore, Mei has them all to herself, and she's just freaking out, getting ready to try it out. So Midnight calls for the class rep of 1A, and Izuku goes up. The crowd begins cheering, and everyone starts to quiet down. He's just going through files in his brain. Then he goes to the inspirational quote section, and then he says, "We're all heroes. Everyone in the audience is a hero. Everyone watching at home is a hero. but a true hero. One who smiles in the face of danger, one who puts their life on the line to protect others. That is a true hero. Who overcomes and endures every obstacle thrown at them. That is a true hero. Now ask yourself, will you be a true hero? He hands the mic back to Midnight, who is just frozen. Every student frozen, even Monoma and Shinso, who are going to badmouth Class 1A, and especially Izuku, just for being rich, couldn't say a word. Then the crowd exploded into cheer like, I want to be a true hero. And everyone starts pumping their fists in the air, and All Might began grinning the widest smile, and he is where Aizawa and President Mike are. He's like, I knew I chose the right one. Well, Todoroki's the successor, but Izuku still has his quirk also. Then Midnight, finally gaining her composure, chooses the event. And the first one, as we know, the race. Everyone gets ready for the race, and they're all pumped up from the speech, and Mei taps her chest, and the fastest suit Izuku developed covers her. And President Mike says, "Go, go, go!" Todoroki freezes the entire ground, then goes 3% full cowling because, he has one for all, and speed blitzes outside the entrance. Actually knocking a few people back except Izuku, Mei, Bakugo, Kirishima, and Tetsu. Izuku and Mei, both in their armor, fly over, the giant robot, while Todoroki just does what he does in canon with his ice quirk, freezing the robot. And both Mei and Izuku were about to activate their boosters to go, speed of sound, but Todoroki launches an ice spike towards them, trying to knock them down, but their detection system senses this and they dodge. Then they boost towards the minefields. Meanwhile, Todoroki sighed, and he knows he's not catching up, but from behind him, a hot-headed Bakugo comes flying towards them. Copying Izuku's style of flight, Bakugo made a constant stream of explosions, blasting himself past Todoroki, but creating constant massive explosions does come with a heavy toll. His bones began hurting, almost breaking, and he was already about to enter the tightrope section. So he stops to carefully cross so he doesn't break his bones, while Todoroki uses his eyes to slide across. And everyone else is just passing the robots, with Class 1A leading the pack. Now, to Izuku and Mei, they both tie for first, and Todoroki, uses his ice again to glide over the minefields, and Bakugo has to cross the path that Todoroki made because explosions and mines, those really aren't a good mix. And everyone else is still lagging behind. But Todoroki comes third and Bakugo fourth, and everyone else, places wherever. Wait, no, Mei and Izuku come first, so Todoroki is second and Bakugo is third. Yeah. So next is the cavalry battle, and Izuku and Mei do work together, and it's really the same team as canon. It's the same team as canon, and everything goes down similar, except they don't get Izuku doesn't get his headband snatched because if anyone tries to come close, he just turns his hand into his repulsors and blasts people away. Some non-lethal ones so they don't shoot straight through them. That would be killing. So that happens, and now it's the 1v1 tournaments. Next is the 1v1 tournaments, and the brackets are announced, and the first match is Midoriya versus Shinso. Shinso comes in, and from the speech earlier, he really doesn't have a problem with Izuku, but he still says some slick stuff. He's like, oh, you Class 1A scum, you think you're so much better than us because of your powerful quirk? Izuku just looks at him with a blank expression. He's like, are you okay? You realize my quirk is not that strong. And he's like, what are you talking about? You can literally make your whole body into a suit of armor. He's like, yeah, but that's not my quirk. He's like, my quirk is just super intelligence, and how I use my quirk is what makes me strong. And Shinso is like, has his eyes open. He's like, wow, I've really been thinking simple-minded. He's like, how can I be so foolish? And while he's having his, I don't know, midlife crisis, Izuku just flies towards him and punches him in the gut. I'm sending him flying out the ring. And the next match is. So the rest of the fights go to canon. Shoto versus Sero. Todoroki wins. Ibara versus Kaminari. Ibara wins. Mei versus Ida. Mei actually takes the win this time because she's using the suits Izuku developed. So Ida, he can be fast, but the suit increases durability, strength, and speed. So I doubt Ida is taking this one, especially with some of the stronger suits she has, at her fingertips. So it's Mina versus Aoyama. Mina wins. Then you have Tokayami versus Momo. Tokayami wins. Ejiro versus Tetsu. A draw. And so you have Bakugo versus Ochako. Bakugo wins. The quarterfinals, you have Izuku Midoriya versus Shoto. And they enter the ring, and Shoto, he doesn't resent his fire, he just barely uses it because my man really has 3 quirks. He has two. His first quirk, half fire, half ice, half cold. What is it? Half hot, half cold. Half fire, half ice, whatever. So it's and one for all. So that versus Midoriya, and Izuku, all his suits have the immunity against fire and ice. So he really has no chance unless he really has no chance unless he can make his flames as hot as the melting point of the metal that's made out of Izuku's suit. Then he really has no chance, and his fire can't get that hot. So and he can only use 5% of one for all, and Izuku can use 45%. Remember, his suits have the ability of one for all, and since his suits are basically his skin now, so he technically has one for all. So Izuku takes the win, and you have Ibara versus Mei. Mei takes the win. Then you have Tokayami versus Mina. Tokayami takes the win. And Bakugo versus Kirishima, and Bakugo takes the win. So the semifinal rounds, it's Mei versus Izuku. Now this is a interesting fight. The thing is, Izuku is stronger, but is he willing to, beat up his girlfriend? And they actually decide not to fight. Mei says, he can win. She was just in it to test out the suit. And, they hug and then walk out the match. And then President Mike is like, oh, these 2 lovebirds. So the next matchup is Tokayami versus Bakugo. Tokayami wins. Then the final round, Bakugo Katsuki versus Izuku Midoriya. And one thing that I also said is that Izuku can analyze other people's quirk. And one of those people's quirk that he did analyze was Bakugo. So Izuku actually decides to use his quirk and only turns his palms into his suit because only his suit can use the quirk. So he turns his palms into his suit, and then it's basically explosions versus explosions. Bakugo launches one, Izuku launches one, and Bakugo is so confused, like, you don't have a copy quirk, how do you have my quirk? He's so confused, and so is everyone else in the audience. So Izuku, like, since he has no backlash because it's metal, so Izuku does eventually win because he can launch way bigger explosions than Bakugo. So Bakugo gets a massive explosion to the face, knocking him out. And it's Izuku first, Bakugo second, and Mei third. Yes, sir. What's next? So when Izuku comes first, you just see Inko along with like 3 other maids just clapping. Then President Mike in the stands is like, "Oh, look over there. That's like Izuku's fan club. Like everyone over there loves him." So no, President Mike is just making jokes, and after the festival, Izuku's mom just comes up and hugs him, and him and Mei, go to celebrate. He came first and she came third, which is a huge accomplishment. And like freaking, what's it called? Request for hero agencies. Those are at a new high. First, you have he's the owner of a $1 billion company, and he came first. Like, who would not want him? So Izuku goes to like a private restaurant with Mei because he doesn't want all the attention, and she likes it as well. It's a chill mood, and yeah, they just have a nice dinner. I don't know, like seafood or something. It really doesn't matter that much. So yeah, after that, he drops her home. Well, his driver drops her home, and he goes home, and that's it for that day. The next day, they go into school to figure out what hero agencies want them, and they, like, Aizawa turns on the screen, and you see so Aizawa turns on the screen with the number of offers from different hero agencies, and Izuku is on top with over 6,000 requests, and Mei is right below him with 5,000. And some people are wondering, like, how is she above Todoroki when he came second? And Aizawa goes on to explain that it's really not just what you place, it's, your public reception, like how people think of you. So, like, they don't want a villainous person. Like, a villainous person could come first but not have as much requests. Similar to Bakugo in canon, Shoto had more than him, and Shoto came second. So, and the rest of offers go to canon. Shoto getting 4,123, Bakugo 3,500 and something, and yeah. And then they have to choose their hero names. I'd say Izuku goes with, oh wait, Mei isn't in class 1A. Yeah, I'd say they still show hers as well. Yeah. So yeah, they choose their hero names. Everyone chooses their name, and I'd say Izuku goes with Iron Man because it fits his quirk. So everyone chooses who they're going to intern with, and Izuku, unless you guys, want him to intern with someone specific, I don't really see him interning with anyone. I'd say the time he uses to intern, he focuses on his business because, revealing his identity, he has more responsibilities in the company. And I have some ideas for the company in the next part, so I'll get into those, when it comes. So Izuku spends most of his time developing actual physical locations for his company, like buildings and, buildings, yeah. Like different headquarters in different countries, and actually assigning roles to different people in the company because he was the only person running it at the time. But with the increased responsibility, he has to have get some people on board to help him out. So while he's doing this, he has to take a business trip to Hosu City. And fortunately, or I guess unfortunately, this is when the villains attack and the Nomus are set into the city. And while Izuku is in the conference room, he just sees a Nomu crash through the window and grab the head of one of the companies he was going to buy. because, acquiring companies, that's a thing you do in business. So yeah, the Nomu just grabs his head, and as he's about to squish it, Izuku turns his arm into a blaster and fires it at the Nomu's brain. And this was a larger blast than usual, and it just explodes the Nomu's head. The businessman comes crawling to Izuku's feet. He's like, "Oh my god, thank you, bro. Like, I saw my life flash before my eyes." He's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll continue this at a later date." And he says, "All right." And everyone in the room just starts running out. And Izuku transforms into his full Iron Man suit and starts flying around, just destroying Nomus. And people are recording this like, "Hey, yo, this like UA kid is pretty good." So like that's gonna get spread around a lot. But while Izuku is flying around, he sees someone in an alley on the floor, like about to get stabbed. He couldn't make out who it was, but he flies down and punches who we know as Stain. Punches Stain in the gut, sending him flying back. Then he looks down, seeing Ida, on the verge of death, and he's like, "Ida?" He's like, "Don't fight Stain." He's like, "I want revenge from my brother." And Izuku is like, "Wow, Ida, I never knew you were this dumb, bro. What are you doing? Like, bro, you're out here trying to get yourself killed, but your brother is okay. What if I didn't show up? What if you died? Like seriously, then your brother is gonna be what? Like, you didn't help your brother in any way. You didn't achieve any revenge. You are weaker than him." And then he's like, "Stop, like, I can still fight." He tries moving, but, he's paralyzed by Stain's quirk. Then Izuku is like, "Oh my god, Ida, you're so stupid right now." And he's like, "Ida, are you stronger than your brother?" And he's like, "No, my brother is league stronger than me." Then he's like, "So the person who took down someone who you say is league stronger than you think he can take down?" Wow, Ida, he's 0 IQ, honestly, 0. I actually thought you were smart for a half a second, but all that respect through the window, Ida. And then Ida is just looking down like, "I can still," and he's like, "Shut the fuck." I'm kidding. He's like, "Shut up," and just punches him in the face, knocking him out. And Stain sees this, Stain gets up and he sees, he just sees Izuku punch him in the face. Then he's like, "Oh, so you're a villain too?" It's like, "No, I'm just knocking his dumb ass out." He's like, "Huh, what?" And then Izuku just flies towards Stain and punches him too, barraging him with punches. And then he finishes him off with a repulsor blast, but not one that just flies through his body, killing him instantly. One that just, a paralyzing effect. So Stain is just like spazzing out on the ground. And then Todoroki comes around the corner. He's like, "Oh, you took care of things?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "How did you even find us?" He's like, "Oh, I was looking for Ida. He acted a bit weird, so I thought he went to get revenge." Then he sees Ida passed out, and he's like, "Oh my god, Ida, are you alright?" And he's like, "Yeah, he's alright. I just put him to sleep." So, so Todoroki takes, what's his name? Todoroki takes, Native. He takes Native and Ida, puts him on their shoulders, and Izuku ties up Stain and carries him over his shoulder, and they exit and go to Endeavor. And Endeavor, he's chilling this, and he's like, "Oh wow, you took him down on your own." And he's like, "Yeah, it wasn't that hard." Then Endeavor is like, "Oh damn, kid, you're pretty strong." It's like, "Yeah, I know." And he's like, "Okay, you don't have to, flex, but okay." So they take Stain to prison, and the police dog mutt thing was like, "Yeah, we can't give you credit, you're using your quirk illegally." And then Izuku's like, "Technically it's not a quirk, but sure." And he's like, "Whatever it is, we have to give the credit to Endeavor." And Endeavor is like, "What? I don't want to take credit from a kid. Like, who do you think I am?" And then the dog is like, "But we can't." He's like, "No, I'm not taking credit from a kid. Like, I can get my own credit." And then the dog is like, "Oh, okay." So they try to give the credit to Native, but when they're announcing this, one of the press who was at the meeting with all the heroes, he's like, but didn't the student in class 1A take down the villains? And he's like, what? No, it was native. He got a power boost and he took down Stain. And then they showed them the video, and he's like, oh yeah, about that. And then everyone just stopped listens because like you just got caught up in a lie. So people really won't trust like the news, really, like, because they just blatantly lied. So yeah, people would have less trust in the news. So wow, I got through that Hosu incident quicker than I thought. But yeah, I'm gonna leave that here. I didn't expect this video to be this long, 30 plus minutes, crazy. But yeah, thank you guys for sticking to, wait, no. So that's where I'm gonna leave this one off. And in the next part, we'll, go through the rescue training race and the final exams. The final exams for the first term, where the students fight teachers, in pairs. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for sticking to the end, and I'll see you guys in the next What If.